Awesome. All right. Let's start with what's your name?
Yeah, my name is Tobias in Swedish, or Tobias as you call it in American English.
Tobias.
Uh,
Perfect.
yeah, I'm not sure I should say my last name actually, although you already know it from my email.
You don't
But
have to if you
I
don't want
have
to.
I have some skepticism regarding like surveillance, and especially if shit happens to grow big eventually,
Yeah.
then I don't want the man to come after me, so so to
I
say.
think it's perfectly reasonable just to give your first name.
Yeah, okay, and I can see that your name is Max, which is a cool name.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, my name is Max Moses, which I personally think is a very cool name.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, where are you from? Just for our audience here.
I'm from Stockholm, Sweden.
All right, cool. I'm from Washington, D.C. right now, but I'm from upstate New York, is where I was raised.
Okay, but they're in the neighborhood of each other, right? So yeah.
Kinda. It's like a 8-hour drive away.
Okay, shit, that's far. Okay, okay.
it's
Well,
a,
at least.
it's European standards is far in the United States. It's a little far.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
All
Totally.
right. So, have you ever been interviewed like this before?
No, I haven't. No, this
Okay,
is the first time.
fantastic.
This is. Yeah.
Personally, I have been working on a couple of other projects where I've been doing these kinds of interviews for about a year now. So I
Okay.
really enjoy this kind of process, and I think it's a good way to like get people to understand our kind of points of view in a better way than just writing it out.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, and it's funny because I'm doing the writing part, so it's fun
Yes.
that and I've been looking for this kind of format as well. I have done some recordings.
Yeah.
And maybe you saw the video I've made also, but
Mhm.
I don't have the skills. It's not yet. It
It,
requires time, and time
it
is scarce. So
exactly. That's all it is a lot of time. Now,
yeah,
I'm curious. When did you start thinking about these kinds of questions?
it actually I started. I was doing my masters in Uppsala University.
Hmm.
It's a relatively small city up north of Stockholm,
Hmm.
and somewhere during I think it's during that second year or something like that, it just dawned upon me that my whole life was laid out in a a maze, not a maze, but it just I just felt trapped.
Yeah.
I realized I'm gonna have a family, I'm gonna get a car, I'm gonna have a house, and I have to do things for the rest of my life that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I went into university purely out of interest.
Hmm.
I was extremely naive actually it wasn't naivety. I actually didn't want to think about the future.
Hmm.
All I wanted to think was like, what am I interested in? What do I like? And I liked physics. That's what I liked. Physics and math.
Fantastic. And what did you get your
Yeah.
degree in?
Engineering physics, if that tells you anything. Lots
Yeah,
of math, lots of physics, but slightly engineering as well.
that's fantastic. Those are very good skills to have. Now,
Yeah, yeah.
what was the do you remember the moment when you were like, okay, I need to, figure out a way out of this maze, out of this track that has been laid out for me?
Not a specific moment, but I do. I remember. I remember two things. One is I was sitting in the cafeteria with lots of people,
Mhm.
and I was asking, what the hell is money, and why do we need it, and why
Yeah.
is it causing so many problems?
Mhm.
Like, why do we have to slave away for money when it has nothing to do with survival? Essentially, now I'm paraphrasing a bit. I'm not sure exactly how I phrased it back then.
No worries.
And I also remember that I got really depressed at some point when I realized shit. When I saw this, my whole life being laid out ahead of me,
Yeah.
I got so depressed. But then I was like, okay, but I got to do something about it. And I started thinking about. I'm not sure you heard. There's something called Earth ships. This
Yes,
like
I actually
yeah,
love Earthships as a concept,
yeah,
and I
they're
want
they're
to
cool.
live
Yeah,
in one.
yeah, exactly. It's interesting. So I thought, okay, if money is my master, then if I can reduce my expenses, I can reduce my dependency on that. Now I kind of
Exactly.
flipped it because yeah. But anyhow, back then I was focusing on the cost side of the equation.
Hmm.
And then I was like, yeah, I need some way to earn money independently. And although I wasn't thinking much about money, primarily it was about cost reduction back then.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now, how do you feel about publishing your work? I know that you've published several things already. Uh, you've actually gone farther than me in terms of publishing, which is fantastic.
Actually, yeah, I actually started recently. Actually, it was last summer. I saw. I mean, I think. I mean, I publish. I mean, so it's a long journey, right? I feel good about publishing. It's
Mhm.
nice, especially recently because it's been a long journey to kind of get my writing to a level where I appreciate it or like it.
Yeah.
So like so I've read many books on how to write. I did all stuff, but recently now, this year, I feel good about it because I have relatively high rate of output and I like the quality.
Yeah, I
And it's
really like your
readable.
writing style.
Oh, that's nice. Cool. That's good feedback. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Speaking of your writing style, what is liquid democracy as an explanation for our viewers?
Yeah. I mean, it's actually interesting because I came to this concept independently. I claim. I'm not sure that's, well, it is true from my perspective. I can't back it up. But then I also discovered that others have come up with the same. The idea is that you have. So okay, let's take the problem statement first, right? So the problem today is you elect politicians who then sit by their office, for 4 years, and they are not accountable to what they do in between.
Yep.
And the direct democracy is the opposite, right? You basically have a vote on every issue all the time. The problem with the first is that you have asshole politicians. The second one is that you don't have time to get involved in every issue, right?
Yeah.
So then I thought, okay, but what if we could make it more dynamic, so that I can, just like when we can subscribe to each other on YouTube, I can tell, okay, I can subscribe to Max. Max knows about money or something.
Yeah.
And I say, I'm going to let him vote for me in certain issues. And I'm going to let this guy vote for me in other issues. Of course, I can also overrule, I can also withdraw. So it's like a very dynamic thing. So the idea is that you create a dynamic system where the people you believe can represent you best can do so. And whenever they don't, you can immediately withdraw your support from them.
Yeah.
And then you can have many layers on top, kind of where you have like, the government. I'm not sure it depends on the game, right? But that they can get financial support for the number of supporters they have. That's like on YouTube and so on and so forth. I haven't explored it too much. I mean, I see two areas. One is the problem space, right? Describing the problem.
That's a very important one.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, because if we don't understand it, we can't not try to fix it. Another one is a solution space, right? And they don't always match. People keep running on solutions, which may not always be the best. So.
Absolutely. But trying these, or at least verbalizing these solutions and working through the problem is, I think, the best way that we can do this.
Yes.
So with this liquid democracy idea, in my petition that I had hiked the Appalachian Trail from Georgia to Maine using, there's actually a similar kind of idea in it. Basically, I wanted any sort of things that would directly affect the legislature, like their pay or their term limits or whatnot, to be a direct vote by the people. So anything that could potentially influence them or that could be a potential conflict of interest in those spheres would just go directly to the people. I really like your liquid democracy idea, though. I think it's a really, really clever one. Just because, we basically have electors that are deciding things for us anyway. Might as well be able to choose them directly and for specific issues.
Yeah, and dynamically, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, I know that you probably have a bit of more of a government education growing up in Sweden. No? I thought there was like a junior government type situation where people get involved early on and then they, have that as an option.
Maybe. It's I don't know what to compare with, so maybe I do. I don't know.
Yeah, we have internships that are unpaid in the United States, which makes it very difficult for anybody that doesn't have a lot of spare income to be able to go and do that. Like right now, I'm trying to get an internship with my local congressman, and unfortunately, it's an unpaid internship. So I need to find, I'm doing a 40-hour work week for him, and I need to find another job on top of that in order to make my ends meet.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's self-selecting for the rich and wealthy, which is exactly what they were trying to do.
Yeah, that's right. That's interesting. Yeah, right.
It's actually illegal in Europe to do it, to have unpaid internships for, I think, exactly this reason.
Yeah, that's probably the reason. Yeah, okay.
In my petition, actually, I do talk about it specifically, and I would love to go over that with you, but I do have some more questions. Explain these artificial laws of physics for me.
Yeah, sure. Those are actually not my ideas. How involved are you in crypto?
I was pretty well versed in what was going on in crypto.
Okay, good. That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea comes from Charles Hoskinson, the founder of Cardano. And the idea is that, as he says it, is going from don't do harm, meaning, encourage people to be good, to can't do harm, meaning that you confine, is confine the right word? You constrict people's actions rather than punishing them for doing bad things.
I think that is exactly the right thing to be doing.
Yes, agreed. Yeah.
Because, like, you know, if you have a system where you give people the opportunity to do bad at some point, they are likely at some point down the line, millions of generations if necessary, but way down the line, could and probably will take advantage of the situation. Probably not even one generation, if we're talking
Yeah.
honestly.
Exactly. Yes.
But removing that as an option and then not needing to punish or respond to it is, I think, the smartest way around it.
Yeah, and making everyone accountable to the same rules.
Exactly.
Like so that is and code is the best way. So yeah, I mean
Yeah.
I don't know how it. I mean it's interesting because Cardano is working on this government system, governing system, and so on, and they're talking about liquid democracy as well, by the way,
Yeah.
which is interesting. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I got my degree in cognitive science, specifically in artificial intelligence programming, and then my other degree was in psychology. And I think that these concepts are like the core of what we should be aiming for.
Yeah.
Uh, let's see. Now let's go to democratic corporations. What is that for our audience here?
Okay. Have you heard of there's a professor called Richard D. Wolff?
Richard D. Wolff. Yes, actually, I have. He does a lot of talks about how
Exactly.
people are getting taken advantage of. Yes,
It's interesting how aligned we are in our like
absolutely.
sources and stuff. Yeah. So the idea is, I mean, this is it has its root in Marxian theory, you know, where you say that okay, so you have a dichotomy of interest between two classes, or doesn't have to be classes, but two interest types, right? One is the employer who is handing someone money to do work, the other one who is receiving it to do that work, and whether or not they're the same person or not, they have like differences in interests.
Yeah.
One wants to pay as little as possible, basically have slaves. The other one wants to have permanent vacation, basically.
Yeah.
Those are the extremes there. And from that, by putting those hats on different people, you create conflict. And the idea with democracy at work, as Wolff calls it, is that you put the same hat, or the two hats on the same people. And Mondragon, maybe probably you've heard because you.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the fourth largest company in Spain. And they're a giant worker co-op. They work by this principle. So the typical people say, it doesn't work. But no, actually, look, it actually works.
It does work. Yes.
Yeah. And if you, I mean, he argues that this will reduce our tendency to make decisions that harm our local environment, because I live here. I'm not the CEO living in another country, you know. I will probably use advances in technology to work less, because I'm the one who's doing the work.
Yeah.
And there's another one that he also says. It's the sustainability aspect, there's the technology and reduction. Probably another one I'm forgetting.
I think it's like distribution of wealth in the community or something like that.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, inequality and such things. Exactly. Yeah. You will. And moving production abroad.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. One of the problems is, you know, all the capitalists, or if you make it more accurate, the stock holding companies, they're moving production abroad to where it's cheaper, right?
Yep.
But you won't do that if it's a democratic company, or you're less likely to do it, because you won't make your job go away, basically.
Absolutely. There was a tile factory in Mexico that the owner threatened to cut pay, an enormous amount of pay for the workers, and the workers decided to take over the factory, basically. They all lived in the town nearby, and then they started running it as a co-op, and in fact, they've earned more money than they ever have previously, and the community is doing so much better than they were before. So
that is cool, yeah.
There are examples all over the world of this being very successful. I'm gonna try to find the actual information on that later.
Sure.
Let's see. Okay, gold standard and crypto. This has been a big topic that has been going on in the public consciousness for a while. What is your take on the gold standard and comparing it to crypto?
I think I mean, this goes into like way deeper ideas that I think are more interesting. I'm not sure you read. There's another article I have that talks about how society is built on games and fictions.
Yep, I have.
Oh, you have, yeah. It comes from what's the name? Sapiens: A Brief History, I think, something like that.
I love Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari.
It's cool, yeah, exactly. I mean, it comes from that perspective, right, where most of the things we do to cooperate is based on fictions, on games. And my view on gold, for example, is that, okay, we have these games, we have this, let's say that you and I sit now, we invent something, we say numbers, or we call it money. And I say, oh, here's 1,000 Tobias dollars. would you like some? I say, and then we start maybe in best case trading them, but then of course I can always print more and so on.
Yep.
And maybe others can come in and counterfeit the money somehow. So we say, okay, but hey, wait a second, this is not working. Could we make it harder to cheat? We say. And we say, oh yeah, maybe I can make some physical representations. I can sit and write notes and put a stamp on it or something, and that will be harder to cheat.
Yeah.
And so what I see it as, you can have these artificial systems and you can bind them to physical reality and use the natural laws in order to make cheating harder in the artificial realm. And gold is one of those methods.
Yeah.
It has limited supply. It's like Bitcoin, but in the real
physical world. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's a way to prevent cheating, essentially. So we create a game, and then we say, how can we make it harder to cheat? Well, maybe gold, or silver, or some other asset that is scarce and controlled by physics.
Absolutely. Now, the drawback on this is it's more difficult to make investments, and that's part of the reason in the explanation as to why they decided to print paper money. Basically, the idea was a debt system that you can, overextend yourself monetarily, but then, have this amount
exactly.
of debt.
Yeah, no, you're talking about government overspending. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. And the gold standard, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. That was why the explanation as to why that shift needed to occur. Do you think that it was beneficial that they shifted away from the gold standard, or do you think it was a mistake?
I think it was almost inevitable.
Yeah.
There's another reference. Have you seen Ray Dalio's video about the coming and going of empires, so to say? The Changing World Order is called.
Who was it?
It's an investor called Ray Dalio.
I've not.
Made a video.
I'm gonna look it up.
He also has a book called The Changing World Order. I'm not so sure it's extremely rigorous, but it's a very interesting idea. What he does is I haven't read the book, I've only seen the video, so take everything I say with a pinch of salt.
Absolutely.
So what he does, he takes a number of parameters, I think 10 or 20, something like that, and then he measures those for countries over history, and he goes through I'm not sure he goes as far back as the Romans, but at least like 1500s and so on. And he sees the fall and rise of the Dutch Empire, fall and rise of the British Empire, fall and rise of the American empires, he calls it. And for each one of them, you can see how much of it is dependent on their currency becoming the world reserve currency. And once that happens, they can buy things by printing money. I don't remember exactly the mechanisms, but he basically says eventually the empire is going to come into trouble because there's like a divergence of rich and poor in their society and so on, and others are copying their technologies, being outcompeted. And eventually they're going to turn on the money printer because it's the only way. Well, they can do other things, but they never do, so to say.
The other big one is a jubilee. Basically, the idea that Adam Smith actually wrote about in what was it, Wealth of Nations, that you need to, at some point, you will extend too far. You will not be able to pay your debts, and everyone just needs to say, okay, we're going to forget all the debts and start over again.
Yeah, and you will read that. It was there's some book called Credit or something, the 5,000-year history of debts, I think written by David Graeber. He talks about that also, and how Mesopotamia and its ancient societies did that jubilee frequently. After a couple of years, everyone was so poor and enslaved. It's okay, let's just equal the playing field.
Yeah.
And restart, basically. Yeah.
I think it would be a very interesting concept. And I think something that comes kind of close to that is a universal basic income, at least to start.
Exactly.
Now, what are your thoughts on a universal basic income?
I think it's an interesting idea, and I mean, okay, so because we don't fully understand let's take a step back. So we have a problem that we haven't fully explored yet, and we have to play games in order to cooperate, right? And if you look at the set of games that we have actually tried, we have tried, maybe a handful here and there, right? A very few number of the possible that we could play, we have actually tried. And what we ought to do is to experiment, right? We should go out and actually try new games and see what works, what doesn't work, so on and so forth. And I think universal basic income is an interesting idea and one of the best potential short-term solutions we have. Yeah. I mean, if we wanted to change things overnight, we should probably go with universal basic income.
I think so too.
Then whether it works in practice, I mean, all the studies suggests, I'm not an expert, but as far as I've read, the study suggests that it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
But over the long term, and if it's made permanent, who knows? One interesting thing is, if you, one of the things I analyze is, how much you need to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the work that is necessary? And I have an article about that actually that I've written, where I say like, okay, so let's say that this is the amount we need to work.
Mm-hmm.
What we're doing now, we are forcing ourselves to work more, right?
Yep.
What universal basic income does is it actually says, look, all this stuff is now voluntary.
Mm-hmm.
So on an individual level, no one has to lift a finger, but we still have work to do. So, but that is all voluntary then. We say, okay, we trust that people will do this voluntary due to whatever economic interest they have,
mm-hmm.
which is an interesting idea, and I really like it actually.
I think it's fantastic. Have you read, what was it? Utopia for Realists by Rutger Bregman? I highly recommend it.
Yes, I think it's about universal basic income, right?
He talks about universal basic income. He talks about universal housing. He talks about the 10-hour work week, and he talks about open borders.
10-hour work week.
I think it's the 4-hour work week. I saw your 10-hour work week though.
Okay. Yeah.
So
okay.
It
rings a bell, but not. I don't remember it specifically, but yeah.
Gotcha. It's really good. I really like his talks about like. Functionally, he goes to all these summits and trying to work on climate issues, and he's just like getting there, talking to people that have all come in on their private jets, and just says like, all right, this is ridiculous. This is like a parody, and the one thing that we've needed to do this whole time is just tax wealth a lot in order to pay for the programs that we need to make these changes that are necessary for all of us. It's not even just like it only benefits the poor, it only benefits one group. It would be beneficial for the wealthy and the poor alike. Yeah. So I really like that kind of stuff. Now, do you have plans to try to accomplish these programs, these ideas in Sweden?
That's an interesting idea. So I've had ideas of this community and actually creating political change for a while. But I've been focusing on the theoretical side. Mm-hmm. But actually, you and some others on Reddit now has spurred on this. Said, okay, I need some roadmap and so on.
Yeah.
But I'm actually happy to. Although I have a practical side, I can take practical things. I see myself more as a theoretician.
Yeah.
So, and I would be really happy. I would like to develop ideas and contribute and be a part of something pretty. But I'd like other people to carry the flag forward, and I can say, oh yeah, this guy onto something,
Absolutely.
Now I don't have any current plans for revolution in Sweden. Although I am part of we have a party called basically they talk about liquid democracy. So I'm a part of them. I don't do much there, but I have vague ambitions, but no concrete roadmaps, basically.
That's very cool. Now, what is the feel on the ground in Sweden about these ideas, or about your economy or political setup right now?
The idea specifically, or the economy in general, kind of?
Let's go with in general for now. Like, how are people feeling right now in the United States, for example? They say that we're not, gonna hit a recession, but pretty much everyone I know feels like we're in a depression.
Right. So that's interesting. For the record now, I don't watch the news, and I'm a very poor representative of Sweden's public opinion.
Okay.
So this is kind of let's take this as my feeling. Okay?
Yes, your feeling.
So I believe we're also heading for a recession, right? And driven by America, pretty much. That's if you look at all the job, it's actually overdue, right? We had the 2008 crash.
Yep.
And we have a crash on average in capitalism, but around 7 years on average, something like that. And I believe we're heading for something, but I'm not sure how. Actually, now that I think about it, I'm not sure how founded that idea is, or belief is actually.
Conceptually, the people that were responsible for the 2008 financial collapse are doing exactly the same thing. Yeah. They didn't get punished, so
still partying.
Yeah.
The party goes on.
Exactly.
I read recently actually an interesting. It was on the Coin Bureau. I'm not sure if you follow them. They had an interesting. It's about crypto. They had an interesting talk with Arthur Hayes, I think he is. Anyhow, he talked about he foresees a coming recession for a very particular reason, which is the commercial real estate.
Yes.
And I've heard about. I mean, we can talk about how the fact that we have the highest national, corporate, and private debt ever in human history, or at least recorded history. But I never saw it this way around about the commercial real estate. So what he says is, okay, banks and other institutions invest in commercial real estate. They say offices are always good.
Yep.
Everyone loves offices. But then came the fantastic pandemic.
There we go.
And then people started working from home. And he refers to a source, which I don't remember at the moment. I have it written down. That says that around 50% of American workers, office workers, are back in the office. So as a bank or a corporation, you're now sitting on an asset, probably costing many millions.
Yes.
And suddenly they say, oh, look, the demand for this asset has gone down drastically, 50% lower demand, essentially. That means that those assets are now worth less, both to the corporations who have the loan and to the banks who are the creditor of those loans.
Absolutely.
And he foresees that if people realize this and start moving their money from the local banks to the big banks like Morgan Stanley and these others that are backed by the government, then you're going to have a bank run.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's I never saw that trigger before. That was an interesting connection between them all.
Absolutely. I actually came up with an attempted solution to the problem of having these vacant office buildings. Functionally, I wanted to transform them into one of two things: either vertical farms that provide enormous amounts of food for the city, or housing, which is in obvious great need right now.
Yeah, vertical farming is interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah.
Just because we have a building in Albany where I'm from, and it has been functionally vacant. It is just there's no walls, or it's just the outside structure. And I was like, this has been here for as long as I've been alive, and it's been in this condition the entire time. It's a very valuable property. It's right in the center of the city, and on top of it is the mascot of our city. But it's just this dilapidated building. And while I know that it would take an enormous, initial investment, the long-term benefits, I mean, it could become a food town. It could be specifically we grow heirloom varieties, and because our distribution is only a few feet to the nearest restaurant or something like that. You could partner up with local universities like Cornell, for example. They have a school of agriculture that you could work on different agricultural techniques. You could use so much less fertilizer. You could use basically no pesticides at all, and suddenly you have a good amount of growth.
And I mean, the Netherlands are using a lot of that hydroponic technology already. So it should be. It depends on the investment and so on, but let's say the city goes in with the initial investment to make it, profitable in the long term. It should be feasible, even as a business, actually.
I certainly hope so. But yeah, I love the Netherlands. I studied in the Netherlands for 6 months when I was studying abroad. It is honestly, it showed me what could be possible in terms of public infrastructure in the United States. I mean, right now, I live in Washington, D.C., and our metros function less frequently than they do in Kyiv right now.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
That is absurd to me. And the fact that I don't have effective access to public transportation. I recently lost my car, so now I have to wait for a bus that is very infrequent and will sometimes not show up at all. So it becomes a more direct problem for me. But I think that there's so many improvements that could be made in our public infrastructure system. I did have a question. Oh, yeah. What do you feel is the biggest, maybe one or two issues for Sweden to try to deal with, or for the world to try to deal with? I know that's a big question, but I've got a couple of answers for the United States.
So, I mean, I actually did my master thesis in nuclear energy.
Oh, wow.
It was, actually, my main interest was in theory, and is in theory. But at some point I was like, okay, I need something that is slightly applied so that I might get a job at some point. I don't have a job in that field. It was too theoretical still.
Yeah.
But so I designed a Generation 4 reactor. And we need to solve our energy problem.
Absolutely.
Either through fission or fusion. I mean, Unfortunately, the renewables, as are they're so called, they're not viable for a number of technical reasons. They're too intermittent, so the electric grid, as it currently stands, can't hold it.
Hmm.
And if you couple the energy produced, I mean, there's a factor called energy return on energy invested ratio, which
Hmm.
measures, let's say you put in a lot of energy in producing a solar panel, how much do you get out over this lifetime?
Hmm.
And if you combine the solar panel with the, for example, battery and other types of technologies required to stabilize the grid,
Hmm.
then it's not even clear that we will make a plus on energy.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a wow.
That's a
Uh,
yeah. Because I knew that the efficiency of like solar panels and wind has gone up enormously since the 1980s. But I did not know that even in combined with like the full system itself, it could still be negative.
yeah, exactly, or at least very close to zero, and
Wow.
that's a huge problem.
That's a
But
huge problem.
the only and I yeah the only thing I saw as a solution back then and still see viable is fission reaction.
I think
So
so too. Yeah.
yeah.
I've been watching
So
with like all of the different channels that they have it. I know the UK did an experiment recently. California's got one as well. Where else? I think there's one in France that they were working on.
yeah, yes, I think so. I don't
But
know the status, but yeah.
their breakthroughs are huge. Yeah, I know it's only for short periods of time, effectively making this happen, but it's on its way, and the amount of energy generated, I think, is enormous.
But we're talking fission or
Sorry,
fusion?
I was talking about wait,
Fusion, right?
fusion. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also excited about fusion. There's a don't remember the company name. I can check it. Actually, I have it somewhere in my notes.
Hmm.
But I believe they might be on the brink of solving that problem.
I think it would be incredible. I think
It,
I mean that kind of energy would be
yeah,
insane. And as you saw and read in *Sapiens*, like each as a society gets more complex, its energy demands always increase, and I think
yes,
that we
exactly.
have to meet that need somehow.
We need surplus energy, right? I mean, it's just
Hmm.
like for every barrel of oil you invest into pumping up oil,
Hmm.
you need to reinvest some of that into pumping more oil back.
Hmm.
And if that ratio is one, I mean, then we're back in medieval ages.
Exactly.
We will never pump it. So we need a lot of surplus energy in order to do stuff.
Hmm.
And I really like the vision. I keep referring to external source, but it's fine. There's a YouTube channel called Kurzgesagt, which
I love Kurzgesagt.
yeah, it's awesome, yeah.
Yeah.
And I love how they have this vision for humanity,
Hmm.
and they talk about, yeah, now we're very low level, like, but if we manage to get a Dyson sphere, as they talk about,
Hmm.
then man, then energy opens up. We can do lots of cool shit with that stuff.
Absolutely.
So yeah, but that would be one of the biggest problems.
Now,
Um,
do you see yourself as a science fiction fan? Are you inspired by what could be? I know I certainly am.
yeah, sure, definitely. I love Star Trek.
Yep, exactly.
The next generation specifically.
Hmm.
Previous ones I haven't watched actually, but
Hmm.
and the later ones are too capitalistic, I feel.
Yeah.
But the next generation is like the golden lock, and I love it for a particular reason. It gives me effing hope for humanity.
Exactly. It's like the one show that I could find that was like, okay, this is something that we could aim for, you know? This is
Exactly, yeah.
yeah.
It's like oh, it's cozy. It's. I mean, okay, you stand all the bad acting, all the bad side effects, all the been just for the plot and the coziness of the characters and
Mhm.
the hope they give you.
Yeah.
I mean, all they do is solve real problems.
Mhm.
I mean, usually in other stories, it's like the plot line can be, yeah, something happens, and then a person didn't talk about it, and
Yeah.
he is actually the problem. If he just
It- it-
raise his voice, then the problem will be solved. So others have plot lines with idiots. They don't. They just
Mhm.
say, here's the problem. Everyone speaks their minds, and they solve the problem. And
I
yeah, like
love it. It's so
yeah,
good.
it's awesome.
The fact that they've solved basically they have no problem with low resources, you know. They've got the ability to print anything functionally, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I love the like theoretical issues. I do recommend there's another series there's like three Star Trek shows that were kind of going on around the same era. There was Star Trek Voyager, Star Trek
Mhm.
Deep Space Nine, and Star Trek Next Generation. And
Okay.
personally, I do recommend Deep Space Nine. It's set in a conflict. Basically, they're on a station, so instead of like traveling out and exploring the stars, they are there's a previously occupied planet, and then there's like the previous occupiers that had set up a station, and that the Federation has now taken over. The occupiers are still like in communication with them, and that planet is its own issue at this point. Has been ravaged by war, and they have
Okay.
to go deal with those kinds of problems, which I think is kind of an interesting concept.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I might. Does it have the same good vibes, or is it more dystopian? Or
It's a little bit more serious, but it's generally good vibes. I
okay,
mean, it's got some subterfuge. There's some war bits, but they still go to other planets and solve their issues. Like there's this one mysterious disease that has been affecting several planets, and they go in and like figure out a way to solve it, and then they start healing people. So there's still positive messages going on. It
okay,
does add a little bit more of a wrinkle to the entire Federation system. So Section 23, I think it was, or Section 13, is like their version of the CIA for the Federation, that they go behind the rest of the Federation's back and
okay,
do things, which is, they explore like the moral efficacy of doing something like that, and I think it's an interesting take, and it affects later shows and whatnot. So I do
okay,
recommend
interesting.
it, but it's not exactly the same kind of like perfectly good vibes, just dealing with like directly
More
philosophical problems. But I mean, that is the function of what Star Trek is.
yeah,
I
exactly.
do really like it. Now, you said that you've met up with some people on Reddit that also think the way that we do. It's so hard to find other people that are thinking about the same kinds of
Yeah,
problems in the
exactly.
same way that we are, but I really am so happy to have met you. How
Yeah,
many
same.
people have you found, by the way?
Not many. There's one guy who says he wants to support, but he doesn't have much time.
Mhm.
There's another guy who says he might want to do a documentary, but he has kind of dissipated. So it's basically you that is the main star of my connections now.
All right. I
So
mean, hey, it's something. We're starting somewhere, and we'll get the message out there, and more people will reach out.
yeah, but I feel like you're gonna go closer soon. I would like to talk to about some things before we close.
Yeah, absolutely. You can talk to me. Yeah, ask any questions you want. I've been just shooting them away.
Yeah, exactly. So I would like to talk about your things. First of all,
Yeah.
I want to understand what you're doing, but also I would like to. I'm not sure how to introduce the topic, but have you come a little bit in contact with what I call artificial survival, kind of?
Artificial
Uh,
survival. In that, like, you need to earn money in order to get the basic goods and needs, and that you don't necessarily actually need to do all of that stuff. But
pretty much that's the concept.
mhm,
I define it more generically, so you can apply it any situation where you have to do something that is artificial for your survival or health, actually.
mhm,
So it could be, for example, I usually take this example. So you have two people,
mhm,
Bob and Alice, and they're in the forest somewhere, and they typically need to spend, let's say, 8 hours per day to do something, or let's say, like, make it less,
mhm.
4 hours per person, right?
Yep.
So 8 hours in total. And if they split it equally, they have lots of spare time.
Mhm.
But one day, Alice says, I'm bored. I want you to dance while I work.
Yeah.
And so then she has to, like, while she peels potatoes, Bob has to work. And suddenly he now has to work 8 hours by dancing, and she has to work 8 hours peeling potatoes.
Mhm.
And suddenly everyone has no spare time.
Yeah.
And every such situation, what they call like arisen by decisions or fictional systems or rules,
Mhm.
that's what I call artificial survival. When you have to do the objectively unnecessary to get the necessary, sort of.
Mhm.
And that to me is a core concept in our struggle.
Mhm.
Many others are focused. I mean, I agree, and I like the concept, for example, of surplus value that Marx talks about.
Mhm.
I really like it. It's nice, and it's quite well based and so on,
Mhm.
and rigorous, I would say as well. But I don't think it cuts to the core of the problem.
Mhm.
For example, let's say that, as Sam Harris often mentioned when he talks about what's the author of Harry Potter, what's her name?
J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we can have people that are filthy rich, essentially,
Mhm.
as long as everyone is free.
Mhm.
Essentially, in my mind, I mean, it might cause some problems if they are rich and they use the system. If they change the rules of the game, then that will cause problems. But in principle, we don't. That's not a problem by itself. The problem is that we aren't free. Or at least that's the base problem.
Yeah.
That is the core of the problem, basically. And I feel like that infringement of our freedom comes from artificial survival, essentially.
Absolutely.
Uh,
I
that,
I definitely, I think that there should be an allowance for a separation in society based on the amount of work and the type of work that people do. So like doctors should be treated well. Teachers should be treated well. People that are the essential workers of our society should be treated well and live a better life than those than are not working a job. Everyone should be able to survive, absolutely. But I do think that there is a threshold. I don't think I want anybody to ever get J.K. Rowling rich, because it invites the ability to influence others beyond what they would feel comfortable doing otherwise. Basically, to lobby a politician or to give them gifts that are seemingly ridiculous. In the United States, we have a Supreme Court justice. His name is Clarence Thomas, and he's been getting gifts directly from a billionaire. The billionaire bought his mom's house, took him on vacations, and that obviously will have some effect on their decision making. So the more power to have that kind of effect over people, they could be moral and just people, but given the right circumstances and the right push, they could, make immoral decisions against their own, wants and desires. So I gotta,
Yeah.
personally, I feel like I gotta be super, super careful with the amount of money that I can allow people to have before that limit, kind of spirals out of control.
Sure. I have a less strong opinion there, and that's because it basically is we have a problem, then the solutions they have to be empirical, right? And I don't know what the right solution is, but it could very well be that we have to limit money or something similar. I don't know, but yeah, so interesting.
I personally wanted to, like, in my petition, I want to make sure that nobody can earn more than $15 million a year. You can have money in the bank, but you can't, like, go beyond that. After that, it's all just taxed away 100%, and then that will go into funding, roads, schools, and all the rest.
Okay, but please tell me more of the petition also. What is it? Where it started? Who are you? I mean,
Yeah.
feel free to start where you.
Absolutely. I love getting to talk about this part. So, it started as a project. I've always been interested in, what I think the good changes in the world could be. I would travel a lot as a kid, and I would see things and be like, oh man, like we should totally have that in my neighborhood or something like that. And then I wanted to see if I could like push it further, and I watched Hamilton, the musical, and
Hamilton, okay.
it's about Alexander Hamilton and the founding of the United States, and it's told from like his perspective. And I think it's a very interesting take on it. It was basically like what a revolutionary mindset kind of feels like. And then I was like, okay, these guys are the founders, but they're fallible. They could be wrong about stuff. Let's just check in with the Declaration of Independence, for example, and see what I would make changes to. So I did. I wrote it out in a scientific paper. It is still in the data collection phase because I moved to the petition. So right now it's about 75 pages, which is very long. Basically, what I did was I took the initial grievances, and then I checked to see if we solved them. And for every check, I wanted to have 3 sources that supported it from legitimate sources.
Okay, wait. So what do you say? The initial grievances? You mean the initial problems that they're trying to solve, or what does that mean exactly?
Yes. So in the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson lays out the problems in it. Let me pull it up real quick. One second.
Oh, we can share a screen here. Actually, cool. Okay.
Oh wait, yeah. I do have 2 monitors. Actually, I have not shared this. Let's see. Actually, I'm gonna pull it up on here.
It's okay. Maybe if you can't, it's fine. I was amazed at the capability, which is a basic one, but that is how it amazed me. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna go see if I can pull it up right now, though. I did send it out to my friends, but basically, he lists out like quartering soldiers or taxation without representation was the main call to action there. And we still have those problems. Taxation without representation, I feel every day because I live in Washington, D.C., that is not considered a state, and we don't have any representation in government as a response.
Sure.
So that
Sweden.
Yeah, exactly. So let's see. I've also reworded these grievances a little bit to be more up to date. But basically, the point is that every single grievance, just about, has not been effectively addressed. They still like linger, and I feel like there are a bunch of new grievances. So I've made my own section, and then I'm also citing all of those.
Problem space, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, and when you say address, you mean address as in the declaration, or as in our society, sort of, or both?
As in, like to address in the declaration itself, to be like, hey, this is a problem that is going on in our society, and we need to write it down and be sure that this is, generally agreed upon. So one of them being the separation of church and state, for example, where representatives in the United States can have been using, Christianity, for example, as a reasoning or moral guidance for making laws, regardless of other people's faith and religion and whatnot. I personally think that should be actually strictly separate and make sure that there are a bunch of people with a bunch of different religions here. You cannot impress your religion upon other people, in my opinion.
Sure, exactly, yeah.
Okay. So stuff like that. And then I created a definitions and examples section. I created a, let's see, there was what happens if business as usual continues, and the public comment section, and a huge bibliography. And then recommendations for what I would think to change. So those recommendations I then pared down to a petition, something that I think would work for everybody in the United States and hopefully be an inspiration to the rest of the world. It's things like, let's go to the petition real quick. The first one is to make sure that while we must establish a 2-term limit for senators and a 3-term limit for members of the House of Representatives is the number one. Then we have no sitting lawmakers are allowed to own any stocks while in office, plus 3 years after, and regulators are not allowed to work for the companies that they regulate at any time in the future. So the main point of this petition, which is 8 pages of big changes, is to limit potential for corruption and provide the basic needs for the people, and then give them the tools to be able to provide for themselves.
Well, here's an interesting thing I want to mention here. Have you read or come in contact with The Dictator's Handbook?
I have not, actually.
It's a must-read, as I believe. I would really love to discuss it with you. It really... It has changed my entire worldview, actually.
Wow.
I mean, it's really powerful stuff. So it in a short-term thing, it's like, how do I weave it in here? So corruption is a symptom of a game or a system that you're playing. That's my way of phrasing it. But so the core message is pretty much this: no one rules alone. If you're a king, you don't have absolute power. You have people that have to carry out your orders.
Yeah.
So every person in every position of leadership or power have people that they depend on to stay in power. You could call they call them the selectorate and the winning coalition, which is technical terms, but you could see it as key people. And the larger the number of key people that a leader is dependent on, the more public goods and democratic the system is.
That makes sense.
It does, and they put they actually have an entire political theory with maths and everything behind it, which is also, there's another book to have about that. They put democracy and dictatorships no longer as categories, but on a scale. Like you have a, just numerical scale.
Yeah.
And it's a fantastic read, and I would love to discuss it, and I think it can inform strongly your/our petition, so to say.
Absolutely.
So I would love to discuss it with you and see how we can implement those ideas.
I would really, really like that. So the heading back to this petition. So I created it because in the actual declaration, they say specifically that we have petitioned our government to try to address these things. And I felt that I had to have the actually due diligence of trying that with my government as well. And so I walked up the country and asked people, what do you think about this? And then I recorded all of their responses. Most of them, it was unfortunate that I had to record just on my phone on my notes, but I do have a handful of actual audio recordings as well. But I do want to make it an entire documentary. Here in DC, I'm going to be filming once it gets a little bit warmer outside and people would be willing to sit down for a while and read an 8-page bullet-pointed thing. But then the long term plan is that I understand that I'm directly challenging power. I'm specifically saying the United States will have no clandestine action in here, which is
Yeah.
a dangerous statement, you know? And I think that the best way to do it is to do it as publicly as possible and to try to, make it difficult for them to just take me out very quickly before I can get off the
Yeah,
ground.
exactly. That's also the alternative strategy I have. Either try to be anonymous,
Mhm.
or be so public that it's difficult to harm us. But then again, Assange happened. So, but yeah. Anyhow, yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly why I'm publishing things very slowly and deliberately and trying to get as much recordings and stuff like that so I can publish it all at once in one go. And then just get the word out there as quickly as possible. Because the long term plan is to work with unions and other organizations that basically make this country run. And they're the only ways that I can come up with to effectively challenge the current power structure and make the changes necessary. So that is going to be our long-term goal. I'm going to try to pair up with the United Auto Workers general strike plan in 2028. I'm currently working as a leadership member of Climate Reality, which is a project that Al Gore started after he published An Inconvenient Truth. And they do a lot of work around, specifically we're the DC chapter, but I'm going to try to get working with a bunch of other groups that I've also tried to work with. I tried to work with Extinction Rebellion, the Sunrise Movement, and a couple of the other ones. And I was just like, I needed something. I needed a base of people that were already, willing to organize and work on this kind of thing and shared this kind of similar vision that you and I share with,
Sure, yeah.
we need realistic changes and we need to do them in a very short timeline, unfortunately.
Yeah, and unions are, I mean, they're the historically proven way to get change.
It's the only one I can think of, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So like, if we had to like create a crash plan, like crash, like okay, tomorrow we gotta make change. Okay, what the hell do we do? Then going to the unions would be the first thing.
Yeah, that's
creating
the main
one.
plan. Do you know how long it took the garbage workers strike before before all of New York City capitulated?
Wasn't it 3 or 4 days, something like that?
It was 9 days. It was 9 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were making fun of them in the newspaper. The mayor called them ridiculous, and after a very short period of time, they realized just how powerful these people were, and I think the secret.
Oh yeah,
of
I remember
America.
you talked about that in Reddit. Yeah, that's a really cool thing. So if we if we manage to organize the essential workers, so to say.
Yeah.
Holy shit, you have the country by the knees, like you said. That's a cool idea.
That's the ball game.
Yeah, I remember that there was a banking strike somewhere in Ireland or something. And
Yep.
No one gave a shit.
Yeah, they talk about that in Utopia for Realists. It's so
Oh
funny.
yeah, they do it. Okay, yeah.
They had the pubs were using like people's just like recommendations and whatnot, and they knew how much people owed, so they just wrote it all down. It's fantastic.
That's fantastic, yeah.
Now, do you have any more questions for me at all? I would love to go into a lot more detail.
Yes. I think I might need to leave soon also. My family expects... I have 2 kids.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, I think it was really nice to meet. Let's see if I have any more things. I would like to understand more the petition. What I have in mind now is like, I mean, number one, I feel like you're intelligent and we can definitely like collaborate.
I appreciate that.
I mean, that is like, it's awesome to find someone like-minded and someone. I also read, like I tried to say before, I love that you're practically, you're hands-on, you're doing shit.
Yeah, thank you so much.
My problem or strong side is that I think too much.
No, but we need people that think. I think this is going to be
exactly.
a very good collaboration between the two of us.
I think so as well. I think so. It would be really cool.
I mean, you're the first person that I found that thinks in a practical manner. I've talked to hundreds of people about this,
Yeah.
and there are people that generally agree. They would be like, yeah, I would support that, but I need people that are thinking about it in the ways that we are.
Thinking and taking action. So we need doers and we need thinkers.
Exactly.
So, and now we have combined the two, so that's perfect.
Oh, my goodness. I'll send those both over to you. The declaration is really long, so you don't have to read all of it. Basically, I was taking like bits of articles that I think were good, and then I would like paste the actual link to the article on the bottom.
Oh yeah, the Wikipedia things.
Yes.
Not that much we had to talk about, but yeah, the goal, I agree. We should put it on Wikipedia somehow. And I also would like to, at some point, move some of my ideas there as well. At least the concepts.
I think it's a
we can
great idea.
Yeah, I think it's a cool idea actually.
Mhm.
Then the question is just the practical stuff. But yeah, we can solve that. So.
Absolutely. Alrighty, I won't keep you too much longer, but thank you so much. It was so good to actually meet you now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, same. It was. I've met people before that have been. I mean, when you start meeting them, you're like, ah, okay, it wasn't. But now, it's like it's awesome.
I'm so excited.
How do we? This we can edit out, but how do we do practically with the video editing and so on?
So basically, this I'm gonna have your recording on it. But if you could email me, like your what was it, GoPro recording and the audio, if that's possible. If not, I can
Somehow.
open up a Google Drive or something like that and make it easier to get the files over. But that way we can, combine these two things and actually have something that we can present.
Yeah, it will be cool. How do you present these things? So it will be in the documentary, or you wanna? Do we think about making a YouTube channel or something as well? I have that in, but I would prefer someone else deal with that basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I am thinking about doing a YouTube channel and a documentary. So I'm going to compile all of these things as a documentary, maybe first, and then publish them once the documentary is published as a YouTube channel to be like a companion to it.
Mm. Okay, then one last thing here, which is
Absolutely.
interesting. So I've been, in terms of, I'm not sure what to call this, like business case, not business case, but like how to achieve growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
But before I was only focused on the book,
Mm-hmm.
which is a huge project. It's and it's like a petition,
Yeah.
or it's like trying to rewrite the Constitution. Ha!
Mhm.
Imagine that, right? And after a while, I started like thinking that I need to get some short-term stuff out there, basically for
Yeah.
feedback and other things. And I read a book called The Art and Business of Online Writing, which
Mhm.
is it's about writing, but it's more about growing content kind of thing.
Mhm.
You might want to at least think about that strategy. I mean, I'm not
Absolutely.
saying it's wrong. I don't know what their timelines are, but at least if you invest this much time and
Mhm.
you need a lot of feedback, it might be worth more to
get
sort of.
direct feedback all along the way. So we could publish it as a
Exactly.
YouTube channel first and then maybe publish a documentary afterwards. I think it's a good idea.
We can consider whatever you want. I'm fine, but
Mhm.
at least I want to plant the seed in your head and then let it see if it takes root or not.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay, good.
Alrighty. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. It was very good to
Yes.
meet you.
This
Take care.
always, yeah, I always do this. at the end. Okay, take care, Max. Yeah, Max, exactly. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Take care, dude.
Take care.
Talk
Bye.
to you soon.
Bye. Thank you.